What's up, Vine Church family? Welcome to our Wednesday night live stream. We're so glad that you could join us online for our study tonight. We've been in a series on Sunday morning and Wednesday nights talking through the issue of wisdom. And when you're talking about wisdom, you got to be in the book of Proverbs. And we've been in Proverbs chapter 22 through 24. Tonight, if you'll take your Bibles, open them to chapter 23. We're going to be looking at wise saying number 11. There are 30 that Solomon lists as the wise sayings by which to live by, and we are on wise saying number 11 tonight. And if you're saying to yourself, hey, I'm not sure why we're dedicating all this time to wisdom. Well, it's because there's a wisdom shortage. And if you needed convincing that there was a wisdom shortage, I can do that for you. Check out this evidence.
This woman is in a very sticky situation. She ran out of hairspray and used something that may shock you.
I use this. Gorilla Glue Spray.
You heard right. The same Gorilla Super Glue from those wacky commercials.
Gorilla Spray adhesive for the toughest jobs on planet Earth.
Now Tessica Brown has big regrets.
Bad idea. Yo, look, my hair, it don't move. You hear what I'm telling you? It don't move. I've washed my hair 15 times and it don't move.
What have you used to try to get it out?
We did the baby oil, we did cooking oil, olive oil.
She also tried washing it out with shampoo. Nothing got rid of the glue. So Tessica posted this video on TikTok, hoping for advice. Instead, she was ridiculed.
Gorilla Glue woman. Dumbest girl on the face of the earth.
Tessica even sought medical treatment at her local emergency room in Louisiana, but couldn't tolerate the burning of the acetone wipes they gave her.
What is your biggest fear?
I'm gonna lose my hair, all of it.
Gorilla Glue says they're sorry, but says their product should never be used on hair.
Tessica, what are you doing? Okay, so if you didn't know, there's a wisdom shortage, and we're trying to fix that together. Here is wise saying number 11. Proverbs chapter 23, starting in verse 10, it says this: "Do not move an ancient boundary stone or encroach on the fields of the fatherless, for the defender is strong, and he will take up the case against you." So I have two things that we're going to cover tonight when looking at this particular passage. Two things. First is this: we're going to answer a couple of questions. Number one, we're going to answer the what question. What is this wise saying talking about? What is it? Right? Second thing that we're going to do is we're going to deal with the why question. Why is this saying wise? Why is it wise at all? Right? So first, let's go. Let's hit the ground running. Let's jump in. The what? What is this passage talking about? Let's go back and take a look. Ready? Do not move an ancient boundary stone. Now, we covered that in week 2 of this particular series. We've already covered the concept of boundary stones, and it comes up multiple times in this wise saying kind of like assimilation of wise sayings. So just as a recap very quickly, when the Jews, the Hebrews, entered into the promised land, the land was split up by tribes and families, and those lands were marked with boundary stones. And so those stones represented property lines. Those stones represented a way of delineating land that belonged to families that would be passed down to families. And so that's just the context of what's going on in this little passage. Check it out. Let's move on. It says, don't move those stones or encroach on the fields of the fatherless. Now, this is something that's also very connected with Jewish history, very connected with Jewish cultural life. And that's this concept that in Jewish cultural life, when the lands were given in the promised land and people entered into that land and possessed that land, God told them specifically that not all of that land was for them. In fact, he told them that even the lands that they owned, where they planted crops and they took agricultural pursuits, they had to leave parts of that land for those who were in need. So let's go back and look at the Torah, the Old Testament, first 5 books of the Bible that explains the laws concerning how they were to govern themselves with this land. Deuteronomy chapter 24. When you are harvesting your crops and forget to bring in a bundle of grain from your field, don't go back and get it. Leave it for the foreigners, the orphans, and the widows. Then the Lord your God will bless you in all that you do. Now, this is just part of the concept that comes up in the Torah about how God would provide for those that were in need from the landowners who were not in need. Check it out. Foreigners, orphans, and widows are the 3 people groups that come up again and again in the Old Testament as a representation of need. So these people are in need. They are a representation of all need. And in this time, in this place in the world, there's no social services, there's no social security, there's no stimulus checks, there's no nothing. And if you end up an orphan, and there's no foster care system, adoption system in place to take you, how does all that work? Well, in this particular community, there were specific laws about how they would provide for those that were in need. Let me give you another example. Leviticus chapter 23. When you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your field, and do not pick up what the harvesters drop. Leave it for the poor and for the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God. So check this out. This concept is foreign to us, but was very core to how they did life in this particular place in the world. The edges of their field, the corners of their agricultural field, those were not for them. They had to be for those who were in need and for the poor. And so they were literally left aside for people who would pass by those fields. They could harvest, they could actually grow they could grow their own food in those places on someone else's field. That's how they took care of the poor in their cultural setting. Now, all that to say, that just means when it comes to the what, it just means that there was an agricultural margin built into society. And if you say, well, what does that mean? That just means this. And let's go slow. I'll say it slow, so I want you to get it. All that you have is not all for you. That was the concept. All that you have is not just all for you. In fact, all that you have, a portion, was for those who were in need. That was built into the DNA of that cultural setting. Let's shift gears now. Let's move to the why question. When it comes to the why question, why is this statement wise? Now that we know the cultural setting and some of the reasoning, let's look at this together. Do not move an ancient boundary stone or encroach on the fields of the fatherless, for the defender is strong and he will take up a case against you. First reason this is a wise statement is just simply this. There's a personal benefit for you. There's a personal benefit for your life. There's a personal benefit for you. When it comes to margin, like actual financial margin. In this culture, it was agricultural margin. In our culture, it's financial margin. When it comes to financial margin, every single financial advisor you ever speak to is going to tell you that financial margin leads to financial peace. At some level, you are going to feel financial peace, at peace, better if you have margin. And you say, well, what's margin mean? It just means at the end of, let's say if you get paid on the 15th and the 30th, when you get to the 15th and the 30th, your debts are all paid and there's still some left. That's in part what margin is. And at that moment, it doesn't matter if you make $30,000 a month, $3,000 a month, $300 a month. When you have margin, there is peace. You feel rich. That's the deal. When you pay all your bills, you pay all that you're required to pay, and there's still money left over to do with what you want, that is a level of margin that makes you feel a level of peace. And so there is a personal benefit to the concept of margin. 2, check this out. There's a spiritual reminder that comes with this concept that's being presented in this wisdom literature. Look at this again. Foreigners, orphans, widows. These are all descriptives of people groups who were in need. If you were a foreigner in that time and in that culture, in the promised land, in the land of Canaan, in the land of the Jews, there would have been a reason. You would have been displaced for some reason, whether it be starvation, whether it be famine, whether it be war. You didn't just move to a new region because you liked the way it looked like we do today. If you were a foreigner, there was a reason. If you were an orphan, you had lost all the extended family that could provide you a home. And if you were a widow, there was no means of employment. And so these groups are descriptive of real need, physical and material need. And here's the deal. Those 3 as descriptors are just a shadow of the spiritual need that all of us possess. Let's look at it again one more time. Do not move the ancient boundary stones or encroach on the fields of the fatherless, for the defender is strong. He will take up the case against you. God identifies with those who are in need. That is a theme that runs the Old and New Testament. So check this out. When it comes to the gospel message, at the core of the gospel that Jesus Christ came to teach us is that all of us are in need. And here's the deal. When we who have maybe our material needs met, when we provide for someone who does not, it is a reminder that though we may have some needs met, we still don't have all our needs met. The only way that we can bridge the gap between us and God spiritually is for God to provide for a need that we could not meet. And so those descriptors of need become a symbol of all need, and that need applies to us. And so when we give to someone who is in need, we are saying out loud to ourselves and to God, I know that I have needs that only you can meet, and I get to in this moment be a vehicle for meeting this need that this person can't meet. Does that make sense? There's a spiritual benefit to this wise saying. Also, this gets echoed in the New Testament. And so James chapter 1 verse 27 says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Check that out. It's interesting, right? Like, it makes sense in the Old Testament. There were all these laws and rules about how to care for those that were in need. But by the time we get to the gospel message, to the New Testament writers, what they say is this: real religion, religion that's right, religion that's pure, and by religion we mean the organizing of people of faith. When people of faith come together and care for those who are in need, it's at the core of the gospel, meaning that when we care for people who are in need, it means we get it. We too are in need. And in that humility, we give to those that are in need. So maybe our need is emotional. Maybe it's spiritual. Maybe it's the grace of God that can only come through Jesus Christ. Maybe it's not paying your rent this week, but I guarantee you somebody does have that need. And when we help with those who have needs, it's a reminder that we too have needs. That's the spiritual benefit. So, what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about a wise practice that was about setting aside for those who have need. And why is it wise? Because by following that practice, we remind ourselves of our own needs for God. It's a constant tool to invoke humility in us and how we treat the others we do life with. That's what's going on in this little wise saying. Wise saying number 11. I hope you'll join us this week coming up Sunday morning for Wise Saying number 12. I promise you it'll be exciting. I'll see you soon. Goodbye. Love you. Mean it.